everyone, and welcome to another episode of Coach Me. I'm one of your hosts, Vic Sorrell from Nashville, Tennessee.
And I'm Candice Rooney, joining you from Austin, Texas.
Hi everyone, I'm Des Stevens, and I'm the proud founder and CEO of Radiant Coaches Academy. And I'm so happy to introduce Diana Ideus to you today. She is our guest, and she is a prestigious master certified coach, which is not what a lot of people can say as a coach. There are very few credentialed coaches at this level with the International Coaching Federation. She is the founder of Hawthorne Union, a consulting and coaching firm in California. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Diana, we're thrilled to have you. And I'll just say, no pressure, but I've been told that you are a consummate expert in coaching.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. And so I'm very curious to know, how do you let that show up in what you do with your clients? What does it look like?
Yeah. So I would say to be a consummate expert, I'm glad that's your words. That would not be my words, but for the International Coach Federation, it's really about partnering with the client and the client being the expert. So the irony of it is, to be an expert in coaching with your clients is to really hold up their expertise.
That makes perfect sense. And so knowing that, what is one thing that you try to keep in mind at the beginning of every session, which will enable you to make that space for your clients?
Mm-hmm. So, it's really listening. What you ask is more important than what you say. I actually wrote a book called Listen, and it's mentor coaching for coaches. And it's about partnership. And I think it's also important because there's a lot of different varieties of coaching out there. So it's also important that we explain to our clients what's happening, because consulting is more prevalent, or coaching that has consulting mixed in is more prevalent. So it's actually very rare for there to be a safe space where clients can really show up and explore and partner with coaches to kind of co-create. And so I think it's important that the clients know what's happening, because the last thing we want is for them to feel like they're getting something wrong or they don't know the answer. When if you don't know the answer, that's what coaching's for. You're on the edge of discovery.
Diana, can you give us some examples of the type of coaching that you offer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's funny because they tell coaches to niche, and I didn't want to, so I didn't. It's part of why I'm a mentor coach, and thankfully I get to mentor the Radiant coaches. And so what I like about that is that, it's holistic coaching, it's health coaching, it's, there's just so many different types. I do mostly business coaching. So whether it's working with entrepreneurs to scale their businesses or create their business, or working with corporate on team management. So I stay more in the kind of business lane, but then I also train coaches, which allows for, just because we're talking about your business doesn't mean you don't have a life, right? So life coaching comes in, but it's not my main focus.
And could you tell me a little bit about how businesses benefit from a coach?
Absolutely. So, a lot of them are looking for revenue, right? Revenue increase. But a lot of people don't know what they need to be successful. And if they have been successful, they're not sure how to sustain it. So there's a lot of like, well, that worked, but what now? Or especially when we look at COVID, people are having to pivot. They're having to re-strategize. They're having to change. And so working with a business owner or in business, it's a safe space for us to say, hey, let's look at your money. And a lot of business owners don't know how they made money, and have most people have a lot of shame and anxiety around money. And so to just be a neutral party and say, hey, I know you don't know how you make your money. Let's look together, right? And let's look at what we can do. Okay, what strategies? Okay, this is maybe getting in your way. Your focus is over here, but your revenue is actually over here. So when working with business owners, I really get into the kind of financial aspect of it. So I guess one of the things I should say is a lot of the coaching I do is financially related. I don't advise, I'm not a financial planner, but I look at, how are your feelings of scarcity or abundance affecting how you manage your team, or, what choices you're making out in the marketplace. And then on the kind of corporate side, whether it's a middle manager or CEO, a lot of it is related to how do you manage your people. So whether it's strategy and having another person to kind of look at strategy with them to make sure they're not in the weeds, or make sure that they're actually compelling and concise. They have that executive presence. And then so much of high levels of management is really about managing the humans.
Mm. Speaking of managing humans, I know a lot of business clients love it when they get assessed. They want assessments, right? So I know you work with the Enneagram. Can you give us a little insight about how well that works for you?
I do. So I actually have multiple assessments because coaches are kind of assessment junkies, I know. So I love the Enneagram because it'll give me it's a glimpse into someone's whole life. Like I had a client who I'd been working with for over a year, and we weren't sure exactly what type she was, but she took a more in-depth assessment that I offer, and it actually changed the trajectory of our coaching. So we're still focused on her growth, and we're still focused on her business, but thematically, the things that we look at, the watch outs, the different kind of topics that rise to the surface related to our Enneagram are very important. And you can do Enneagram in organizations. There's a team report as well. For organizations, I usually use the predictive index because it has a lot of management applications, from hiring to strategy to engagement survey to analyzing your team to onboarding. It's also not as intimate or in depth. It's almost like a mile wide versus a mile deep. I feel like you have to be in a special corporate environment to be safe enough to go into the depth that the Enneagram goes into. Hats off, hats off for the corporate environments that had that. But for myself, I usually lead in with predictive index.
Diana, what exactly, sorry, Vic, what exactly is an Enneagram? What does it look like?
Yeah, you mean the assessment?
Yes.
Yeah, so that could be a whole separate show, but essentially the Enneagram it has ancient roots, so ancient and more spiritual roots, which is why some people gravitate towards it and some people avoid it. But essentially it's that there are 9 ways of seeing the world and 9 ways of really kind of being and showing up. And so a lot of times when we look at conflict in the world, it's because whatever you've done in my map of the world doesn't jive. But when we look at the heart of diversity and inclusion and look at the fact, okay, according to the Enneagram, there are 9 ways of showing up. According to the predictive index, there's 16 ways of showing up. It just helps people understand different perspective and then also see themselves. Because to truly make a difference in this world, in my opinion, you need to look in the mirror and know yourself, and because that's going to affect how you show up.
Thank you.
And you made a comment a minute ago about how sometimes people don't feel safe enough in a corporate environment to use Enneagram. Do you think that's more of a help or a hindrance? Because I know that that's very true about corporate America, that we don't tend to often want to be vulnerable there or go deep or have intimacy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I would say dealer's choice, but I think it's a person's choice. So the thing is that I love using assessments in work environments, but at the same time, while you have understanding, you do have people who limit, oh, you're just a so-and-so, right? Or I'm doing this and I'm showing up this way and refusing to budge because I'm a this. So unfortunately, that's not the assessment's fault. That's the human element. So in my opinion, though, people need to feel safe. And I love the Enneagram. It's something I've been studying for almost as long as I've been a coach. So almost, 14, 15 years. And I love how it's impacted my life and the connections I've made with other people and how it helps my clients show up. But I do think that people should have a choice. And when it comes to assessments, if you tell me your number and your instinct, you've told me what you're afraid of. You told me how you show up when you aren't doing so well. You've shown me a lot of how, there's so much that it says about a person, especially when it is the Enneagram, that, there are coaches out there who absolutely lead with it in the corporate world. And I think that's great. For me, the predictive index feels a little bit safer. And I like it's software. So it's easy management applications for people. And it's very scalable in the organization. So I use the Enneagram more with my private clients, and I use the predictive index more in the corporate setting.
So something else we understand about you is that you are a group coach.
Mm-hmm.
And we are hoping that you might show us what a group coaching session might look like. Would you be willing to do that on the fly, just with
Yeah.
Des and Candice and I? Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, so group coaching. So even though this is going to be recorded and shared, I'm going to ask that, what happens here stays here in essence, right? Which is strange because we're then going to be broadcasting it out, but it's important that you feel safe here and only share what you like to share. I'm going to ask that as you share, just kind of give us the high level. So you share the microphone. You guys already know each other, so that's probably, and in a coaching space, that's probably something that you do. But just ask that, we see where this goes and that this feels like it's a safe space for everyone. Good. We get agreement there?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So the first question that I'm going to ask you is what you want to take away from this little mini session. And also, do you have a time limit that you want?
5-6 minutes.
Okay. So we have 5-6 minutes, and I'd like to get a sense of what you'd like to take away from this time. And I'll also ask you that question at the end of our time. So floor is open.
I would like to take away an idea of something fun to do this weekend.
Okay.
As would I, and I want to have an idea about how to create consensus around that. Finally.
I guess I'll just go with the flow and with something fun to do. I'm not quite sure what I want to take away right now.
Okay. All right. So if we achieve this objective, and if you walk away with something fun or something else, what's that going to feel like for you?
Full.
Okay. I'd say joyful.
For me, it's relief.
Okay. So a sense of joy, a sense of relief. What else is coming up?
When you asked that question about what I wanted to take away, that was my first thought, because I realized I've not really been having fun on the weekends. I've just been working. With the pandemic, I'm just going. And I'm thinking, wow, it's Saturday morning. And I don't want to, on Sunday night, think I didn't have any fun.
I'd say the same. I've had a really busy week, and I feel like I've been more in my head versus just enjoying myself. And one thing, it's like, I'm home because of the pandemic, and I go out here and there, but I don't go out. And normally I would really enjoy that. I don't feel like I'm quite enjoying it as I should.
For me, it's a little 50-50. Sometimes I get my fun and my joy in. I did this morning, which is good. I can feel the difference. But other times, just depending on what the to-do list looks like, it's more challenging to be disciplined about fun. Disciplined about tasks, no problem. Disciplined about creating time for fun, that's not always easy.
Okay. So there's some heaviness here, right? Something you need relief from. Right. Discipline, right? I should be having more fun, or should I be doing this? So there's some weight to that. What would it feel like this weekend if that was lifted?
That's what I'm looking for. I just realized with this inability to travel the way I normally do, and in this anticipatory, like, well, next month I might go on a road trip to go see my mom. I'm realizing like I'm not fully in the fun of the weekend, because I think I'm a little tense about the pandemic. I think that's what it is. I think this heaviness is, well, I can't have too much fun because people are dying. Right? I mean, talk about heaviness. I can't, like, I'm trying to enjoy the simple pleasure of the weekend, but I'm worried. I'm worried about all of us, and I'm worried about my family. So I don't know. I think for me, it's going to be like, I need to like spend time in nature. I think that's what I need to do.
I agree with that, Des. I've also been craving time in nature.
I think I just need to not be so damn serious. That's what I think. And there's my fun right there. Because, just you pointing out that I said disciplined about fun, I thought, well, that's very telling of where I am in my life right now. So I got mine.
Okay.
And thank you.
Absolutely. So going back to just something that I heard Des say, it's almost like, I'm going to offer this up, not because it's how you feel, but for something for all of you to respond to. It's almost like if I have fun, that is a disrespect or negation of, the state of the world.
Yes, that's exactly how it feels. It feels like I had dinner yesterday, and normally I would totally, like the food eats first, I'd take a picture, I would post it. And I was like, I felt a little like, why should I be boasting that I'm out for, a meal right now? I was driving a friend to a rental car place an hour away because she's trying to get from New York to Alabama. And it was like this errand, and my husband was with me. So we went out to eat. We had this delicious meal at this Vietnamese place that we accidentally found, and I didn't post the photos. And I thought there's kind of like this weird shame or something, like I'm not supposed to be out having fun at a restaurant right now. And so I like saved them in my phone, like I'm going to post them later. So that's so ridiculous when I say that out loud, but that's exactly how I felt in the moment.
What if it wasn't ridiculous?
Well, it isn't ridiculous. It's so not ridiculous at all. But I guess I'm just realizing now, like, I worry about, I think in my mind, I might have been thinking, like, what would my mom think of me posting that if she saw it on Facebook? She'd be worried about me being out in a public restaurant. Or what if, I don't know, like, I'm so proud to say normally, like, I don't care what people think, but then I guess I do because that's why I didn't post it.
For me, it's so powerful to realize that I believe that certain situations should be just something, just one thing, maybe not so multidimensional. But just hearing what you're saying, Des, says to me, yeah, there should be joy in this journey, even though there's immense suffering always going on all over the planet. It's still appropriate to have a multidimensional experience. And yeah, wow. How powerful is that? You think about a funeral, you think, it should be a sad thing. It should be somber. It should be this, it should be that. But maybe it's completely appropriate to experience joy in a funeral.
Celebration of life, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It changes everything. Wow.
I kind of feel like just with the idea of wanting to be in nature, I think I've just been holding myself back because of the same thing. Like, is it okay? If I do that, will it affect so-and-so? And just this like hesitation to do anything for myself that I really want. But I think just by expressing it right now, I realize I should book something where there's not a lot of people and just do it. I can do it. I have the time. I have the ability to do it. Like, I'm just gonna do it. I think that's what I just realized.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot more we could do here if we had more than 6 minutes. So there's a lot where we could go. But as we move to close, I'd love to hear something either that you're taking away or something that would be helpful for the group to know to just be able to support you.
For me, I'm walking away with this understanding of multiple realities and that I have a choice, that I can choose to feel good or bad about anything, whether it's, quote, good or bad. It feels good.
I feel a few different things. I feel empowered, and I also feel like there's a common thread that we're all feeling unsure to do what we want to do because of other factors, but we're all in this together. Everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people are feeling like this, and so I think it's okay to like do what we want. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I'm just getting this thing about everything is an invitation to unconditional love for yourself, you know, and being willing to show up in your authenticity is an invitation for other people to choose unconditional love, should they, if they're offended by your behavior. You're, you know, not intending to be harmful, like posting that meal, you know, if somebody needed to judge that, well, maybe that's what they need to do. Maybe your willingness is a part of their experience. So, man, that was a very powerful 6 minutes for me.
Isn't that amazing what can happen in 6 minutes?
Yes.
I wasn't expecting to feel that heaviness, but you were so right. It did feel like heavy all of a sudden. I was like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it feels a little lighter now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'll speak briefly to the Enneagram. Des, if you're okay, because your Enneagram type to me layers some of what you were talking about. So for certain Enneagram types, specifically one that Des resonates with, beauty is so important, and the richness and the artistry of beauty. So that wasn't just so this is my interpretation, and then Des, you know, try it on or toss it out. Beauty and art in the interpretation of that, and also experience, you know, that particular type is all about experience, from the depth of the sadness to the range. And so even feeling the sadness or shame, because that is the shame triad, that is very much being alive. And then I will say, you know, separate from what Des shared, you know, depending on who resonates and how people resonate with type 7, there is a live like you're dying enthusiasm and abundance and joy for the 7s that is so important. And the thing is actually the most profound discussions I've had during this pandemic are with the 7s, who truly, you know, there's permission to feel the joy and exuberance even in the midst of death. Because the thing is that it doesn't mean that you don't care. You doing something good for you is potentially an act of being able to live and show up in a way that is so important right now. So it's funny that I was like, oh, I don't want to lead with the Enneagram in that way, but it does when I know that about someone. Or now, Vic, you know, you raising your hand for 7, your ability to have your options and your freedom, and to not even have discipline, but not have the limits, that's really important.
Funny, because my lunch was with my husband, who's a 6. And so he was just the entire time like wiping everything down and spraying everything down, and talk about going on a road trip next week with a 6 is going to be challenging. But that's so,
hey, but you'll be safe, right? All the ways to keep you safe.
Yeah, this is what I love about the Enneagram work, is it shows us our strengths in our idiosyncratic constructs. You know, if it wasn't for a 6, none of us would be safe. You know, we need our 6s to stay safe. So yes, it's such a dichotomy, but I just love it. It's showing us how complex, I won't say complicated, but how complex we are.
I was a wing 6, or I am a wing 6. And that when you were talking about that, I didn't realize that aspect about 6s, but I can remember when I was a kid, I was so afraid we were going to run out of gas. Can you imagine driving an 8-year-old around that was constantly checking your fuel gauge? You're like, Mom, how are we doing on gas? Mom, do we need to get gas? Just silly, but I was really concerned with it.
But so I'm gonna offer not silly, because for a 6, for 6, it's let me mitigate all risk as an act of love to keep you safe, and I will potentially be anxious about all the things that could go wrong to keep you safe. But as a 7, if you run out of gas, the adventure would stop, and you would be limited, and you would be stuck, and that is not okay.
Right.
Right? So while you see that as your 6, I also offer that to straitjacket a 7 is literally the worst thing that you could do. And that's probably what happened if you ran out of gas.
Wow. More Enneagram coming to me. I can feel that now. My afternoon is going to be diving a little deeper. So, Diana, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. And is there anything else though about what you do or how you do it that you'd like to share before we close?
That's a good question. I think it's really, knowing that there will be a lot of coaches watching this. Mm-hmm. It's really about, well, whether coaches or non-coaches, it's really about authenticity, right? So I like short phrases. I hand the client the mic as much as possible. I'm very direct, but also that's what matches me. That's my style. And there's so much pressure people put on themselves to be better or to be stronger or to hide the vulnerabilities or anything like that. And so whether it's a coach showing up and trying things on, or whether just you and your life are adapting to circumstances that we've never adapted to before, it's just about making space and holding space and being authentic, and however you show up is however you show up.
Wow. That's, for some reason, I just have a big old Tennessee hell yeah right now. So it just is what it is. You're talking about authenticity. Thank you so much. That's so resonant for me, I can say. And just wish you the best in your work as you continue to support people. Yeah, for sure.
How can people find out more about your work, Diana?
Yeah, so HawthorneUnion.com. We have a podcast, Cross Street Coaching. So a lot of fun if y'all want to come on. It's an adventure. And then I just wrote a book called Listen, Mentor Coaching for Coaches. It's a coffee table book. So it's designed to be like a fortune cookie. You can just open it up and it has something for you related to your coaching. And I do continuing education with coaches. So I do group coaching for professionals, specifically leaders, but also do continuing education for coaches. So what's really neat is we have, Jesse Trout, who's also Radiant. He just wrapped up an authentic masculinity course. So he's really leading the way related to kind of how we look at men's roles. And then for me, I teach a finance and gender course where we look at, how does our kind of societal expectations about money, how do those help us? How do those hinder us? How do we better serve our clients? So we're building a sales training. So sales training for non-sales people to help people, it's to help people kind of get out there in their authentic way and also share their message. So lots of continuing education, lots of opportunity, and it's all about community, and I'm so thankful to be part of the Radiant community. So always happy to hear from folks.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, and thank you for joining us for Coach Me. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diana.